I'm your host, and today we have a really fascinating exploration for you. I want you to picture something. Just picture this specific scenario. You are sitting in your car, parked right there in your own driveway.
Mhm.
The workday is officially over. The engine is turned off, and it's making that faint, that rhythmic, metallic ticking sound as it cools down in the evening.
Oh, yeah, that classic sound.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And you can smell the lingering, slightly bitter scent of the stale morning coffee that you never finish. It's just sitting right there in the cup holder.
right.
Your hands are still tightly gripping the textured faux leather of the steering wheel, and you just feel it. A heavy, dull, suffocating exhaustion settling deep into your bones.
Yeah, it's a very real feeling.
It's not just physical tiredness, right? It feels like an emotional sludge that you are actively trying to wade through. I have my co-host and resident expert here to help unpack this. So what exactly is happening to us in that moment?
Well, hi, everyone. It's great to be here. And to your point, it is a very specific yet incredibly universal kind of gravity. You feel literally pinned to the driver's seat.
Yes, exactly. Pinned.
You're just lacking the sheer momentum required to even unbuckle your seatbelt and walk through your own front door. It's a paralysis that, honestly, it doesn't make logical sense when you look at the raw data of your day.
And that is the truly confusing part. That's the part that makes you feel almost guilty. I mean, you look back at your Tuesday and objectively speaking, nothing terrible happened.
Right, there was no catastrophe.
Exactly. Your house didn't burn down. You didn't get into an explosive, screaming argument with your boss. There was no profound, earth-shattering loss. Your day was, for all intents and purposes, entirely normal.
Just a standard Tuesday.
Right. You answered emails, you had a mediocre salad for lunch, you sat in traffic.
Hmm.
So the central mystery we are exploring today, and what the source materials we're looking at really dig into, is this. Why do you feel so incredibly drained?
Why the sludge?
Yeah. Why are you harboring this hollow, low-level anxiety vibrating behind your ribs? Why does it feel like you are carrying 100 pounds of invisible weight on your shoulders when nothing actually went wrong?
Well, we are culturally conditioned to look for a smoking gun,
No.
a clear, dramatic reason for our pain or our exhaustion.
We want the movie plot explanation.
Exactly. And when we don't find one, we turn that confusion inward. We assume there is a character flaw. We think, I have no right to feel this exhausted. I must just be weak or lazy or ungrateful.
Oh, the guilt is so real.
It really is. But the materials we're reviewing today point out that the feeling in the car isn't a malfunction. It is a biological and psychological symptom of an accumulation.
And I want to spend our time today unpacking that exact accumulation. We are going to trace the origins of this invisible weight, look at how our earliest human connections actually wire the physical hardware of our nervous systems, and eventually piece together a practical toolkit.
A toolkit for building a psychological immune system.
Right. But let's start with that word, accumulation. If I didn't get hit by a boulder today, where is the weight coming from?
It comes from the everyday paper cuts. We need to distinguish between two types of emotional wounds here. Society is very, very good at recognizing major, life-altering traumas.
Like the obvious ones.
Yeah, surviving a natural disaster, going to war, suffering severe abuse. The clinical world has clear diagnostic criteria for the aftermath of those massive events. We understand the need for recovery.
Right, like we bring casseroles, we offer time off.
We do. But then we have the other category. The subtle, insidious, everyday friction, an offhand dismissive comment from a partner, a microaggression in a Tuesday morning meeting.
The small stuff that you feel silly complaining about.
Exactly. The silent, agonizing humiliation of realizing you don't quite fit in with a group of friends, or the chronic pressure of perfectionism, that constant quiet whisper that you're just not quite good enough.
And the sources say our nervous system processes these smaller events in a really fascinating way, don't they?
Yes, they do. A major trauma is like a massive earthquake that destroys the foundation of a building all at once. But these small daily frictions, they're like termites.
Oh, I like that analogy. Termites.
They're quiet, they're hidden, and they do their damage incrementally. Individually, a single paper cut is nothing. You wince, you put a bandage on it, you move on.
You barely even remember it the next day.
Right. But getting 10 paper cuts a day, every day, for 10 years, that fundamentally alters your physiological baseline.
The source texts actually use a great financial analogy for this that really stuck with me. Think about it like credit card interest.
Oh, the credit card analogy is perfect.
Right, because you swipe your card for a coffee here, a quick lunch there, $5, $10. It feels completely insignificant in the moment.
You don't even register it as a loss of resources.
Exactly. But if you are only paying the minimum balance or ignoring the statements altogether, those tiny charges compound. The interest builds on the interest. And years down the line, you are looking at a massive, insurmountable debt.
And in our psychological lives, that compounding emotional debt manifests exactly as that sludge in the parked car.
You haven't made any catastrophic emotional purchases, but you are emotionally bankrupt all the same.
Precisely. The materials also use the analogy of a simple metal paperclip to explain the mechanics of stress.
Oh, yeah, the bending paperclip.
Yeah, if you gently bend the outer wire back and forth just a little bit, the metal has flexibility. It springs back to its original shape.
That would be our natural, healthy stress response.
Right. We encounter a small challenge, we adapt, we recover. But if you forcefully bend it past its tolerance, or keep bending it back and forth continuously without ever letting it rest, the metal weakens.
It literally heats up.
It heats up and it completely loses its original shape. It gets twisted and warped. And society actively tells us to ignore the bending of the paperclip.
Because the prevailing cultural narrative is basically keep calm and carry on.
Exactly. We are taught to invalidate our own small wounds because they don't fit into a dramatic movie plot.
Right, you can't call in sick to work and say, hey, I'm not coming in today because my boss looked at me weirdly yesterday and it activated a deep-seated fear of rejection.
People would think you were completely ridiculous.
They would laugh you out of the office.
So we swallow the distress. We numb it out by scrolling through curated images on our phones, which ironically only introduces more comparison and more friction.
And all that unacknowledged swallowed distress just ferments.
It does. The body keeps a meticulous ledger. The vagus nerve, which wanders through our body monitoring for safety, gets trapped in a state of sympathetic arousal.
Even though there's no actual tiger chasing you.
Exactly. You aren't fighting a predator, but your internal system is humming with the electrical current of a threat. That is what creates the heavy, dull exhaustion. Your body is tired from fighting a phantom war all day.
Okay, but wait, I want to push back on this just a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Because if we legitimize getting upset over every little daily friction, every delayed text message, every grumpy cashier, aren't we just stripping the word trauma of its actual meaning?
That's a really common concern.
Right. Like, aren't we creating a society that is just overly sensitive, encouraging people to be fragile? How do we, or how does the listener distinguish between a normal, fleeting life annoyance and something that is actually causing this compounding paperclip bending damage?
Well, that is the necessary friction in this whole concept. The distinction isn't about the objective, external size of the event.
Okay, so it's not about the cashier being grumpy.
No, it is entirely about your internal physiological compounding. A normal life annoyance, say, someone cutting you off in traffic, it spikes your irritation, but 5 minutes later, your heart rate is back to normal.
You forget about it by the time you get to work.
Exactly. It doesn't stick to you. It doesn't get added to the credit card balance.
So what makes it stick? When does it become the toxic debt?
A daily friction becomes damaging when it alters your baseline behavior and your self-worth. It's the internalization of the event.
The internalization. Can you give an example?
Sure, if a colleague talks over you in a meeting, that's an annoyance. But if it happens repeatedly and your internal narrative translates that into, my voice doesn't matter, I am unintelligent, and you subsequently stop speaking up in all future meetings, you withdraw it into yourself.
Wow, yeah.
That has crossed the line. It has warped your paperclip. The behavioral shift is the key marker.
So it's not about policing the world to never annoy us.
Not at all. It's about monitoring our internal ecosystem to see what is poisoning the soil.
That reframes it completely. It's not about the severity of the trigger, it's about the depth of the echo.
That's a beautiful way to put it, the depth of the echo.
Which raises the next logical question. Why does a delayed text message or a slight tone shift in an email create such a massive echo for one person while another person barely even notices it?
Why the different reactions to the same neutral event?
Exactly. Why are we so deeply impacted by minor social rejections?
To answer that, we have to look backward. We have to examine our earliest human blueprints. The evolutionary biology of human connection is actually quite stark.
Right, because human babies are born incredibly premature compared to other mammals, aren't they?
Exactly. Think about a foal. A foal can run hours after birth. A human infant cannot even hold up its own head.
They are completely helpless.
Completely. Therefore, for a human infant, social connection is not a luxury. It is a literal biological imperative. If an infant is disconnected from a caregiver, they die.
So it's life or death from day one.
Yes. We are genetically programmed at the deepest levels of our nervous system to monitor our caregivers for signs of approval or rejection, because to an infant's brain, rejection is synonymous with death.
This actually brings to mind that historical shift in how we understand affection that the sources talk about.
The behaviorist era.
Yeah, in the mid-20th century, the prevailing medical and psychological advice was entirely behaviorist. Experts literally told parents not to hug or kiss their children.
Which sounds insane to us now.
It really does. They warned that affection would spoil them and create weak adults. They believed attachment was purely transactional, like the baby only loves the mother because the mother provides calories.
The assumption was that the breast, or the bottle, was the sole driver of the bond. But there was a pivotal, frankly heartbreaking animal experiment that completely dismantled that assumption.
Oh, the monkey experiment. This one is so fascinating.
It really changed the landscape of psychology. Researchers separated infant monkeys from their biological mothers and placed them in a cage with two artificial surrogate mothers.
Right, and one surrogate mother was made entirely of cold, bare wire, but it had a bottle of milk attached to it.
So it provided the biological necessity of calories.
Right, and the other surrogate mother was covered in soft, warm terry cloth, but it provided absolutely no food.
So under the behaviorist theory of the time, the monkeys should have attached exclusively to the wire mother.
Because of the calories. They should have maximized their caloric intake and ignored the useless cloth.
Exactly. But the results completely defied the biological assumptions of the era. The baby monkeys overwhelmingly clung to the soft cloth surrogate.
They spent, what, up to 18 hours a day wrapped around the cloth mother?
Yes, seeking comfort and warmth. They would only briefly dart over to the harsh wire mother when they were absolutely starving, quickly drink the milk, and then immediately run back to cling to the soft cloth.
That is so sad, but so telling.
And furthermore, when the researchers introduced a terrifying mechanical toy into the cage to frighten the babies, they didn't run to the food source.
They ran to the comfort source.
Exactly. It proved that primates crave emotional warmth and security just as fiercely as physical sustenance. We need to feel safe.
And the way our early caregivers provide that safety, or fail to provide it, writes the foundational code for our entire lives.
It dictates how we perceive every single interaction in our adult lives.
And the texts categorize that code into 4 distinct attachment styles, right? Secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized.
Yes. And it's important to note, these aren't personality quizzes you take in a magazine. They are neurological adaptations.
Hardwired into us.
Right. They are based entirely on how a caregiver responds to a baby's nonverbal cues. Imagine a baby crying.
Okay, baby is crying.
A caregiver who responds consistently with warmth and attunement teaches that baby's nervous system a very specific lesson. The world is a safe place. When I have a need, it will be met. People are reliable.
And that creates a secure attachment.
Exactly.
So that child grows up to be an adult who generally trusts people, can handle intimacy, and doesn't panic if their partner asks for some alone time.
They have a secure internal base to operate from.
But what if the caregiver is inconsistent? Like sometimes warm and loving, but other times distracted, overwhelmed, or just emotionally unavailable?
Well, the baby's nervous system enters a state of high alert. They never know which version of the caregiver they are going to get.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. This creates an anxious attachment. The neurological lesson here is, love is unpredictable and scarce. I have to work intensely hard, cry louder, and cling tighter to keep my caregiver's attention so I survive.
And in adulthood, that looks like the person who spirals into a complete panic if their text message isn't answered within an hour.
Yes, they aren't just annoyed. Their nervous system is actively simulating abandonment.
Because their earliest blueprint taught them that connection is fragile and might just vanish at any second.
Exactly. Let's take that a step further and look at the neurobiology of the avoidant attachment style, because this one is often misunderstood as simply being cold or independent.
Right, the lone wolf stereotype.
Yes. Consider a caregiver who is consistently distant, dismissive, or actively irritated by the baby's needs. If the baby cries and is routinely ignored or told to be quiet, the baby's nervous system calculates a terrifying survival equation.
What's the equation?
Crying expends precious energy. If no one is coming to help, continuing to cry is a biological waste that accelerates death.
Oh, wow. So they stop crying.
They shut down. The vagus nerve shifts into a dorsal vagal state, which is a freeze response.
It's a freeze response, right?
The baby literally learns to suppress outward signs of distress to maintain whatever minimal proximity to the caregiver they can without provoking irritation.
So the internal lesson becomes Expressing my needs is useless, and relying on others is actually dangerous. I must self-regulate entirely on my own.
Exactly. So fast forward 30 years. You have a 35-year-old on a date or in a marriage. The moment the relationship demands emotional intimacy or vulnerability, their nervous system perceives a lethal threat.
Because deep down, their blueprint says that relying on someone else is a trap that inevitably leads to disappointment or abandonment.
So they pull away. They fiercely guard their independence, not out of malice, but out of a deeply wired survival mechanism.
And finally, we have the disorganized attachment style.
Yes. This one typically arises from situations of severe fear or abuse. The caregiver, the very person a baby is biologically programmed to go to for safety, is also the source of the terror.
That creates an unresolvable paradox in the brain, doesn't it?
A massive paradox. The infant's biology screams, run to them for safety, while simultaneously screaming, run away from them to survive.
How does that look later in life?
It leads to chaotic, erratic relational patterns in adulthood, oscillating wildly between desperate clinging and hostile rejection.
You know, reading through this in the source materials, I couldn't help but compare it to a smartphone's default operating system.
Oh, I like that. How so?
Well, when you buy a phone, it comes with a system installed that runs completely silently in the background. You never actually see the operating system itself. You only see the apps on the screen.
Right.
But the OS dictates how every single app functions. It dictates the battery drain, how notifications are displayed, how memory is stored. Our early attachment style is exactly like that. It's our psychological operating system.
That analogy holds up perfectly.
Yeah.
Our friendships, our romantic relationships, our interactions with our boss, those are just the apps.
Yeah.
The OS filters everything.
Yeah. So, if your OS is programmed with anxious attachment and your boss sends a perfectly neutral email saying, let's chat at 3 p.m., your OS immediately filters that through a lens of threat.
It pushes a glaring red notification to your conscious brain,
saying, you are getting fired, you did something wrong, you are being abandoned. The email was completely neutral data, but the operating system translated it into absolute terror.
This completely explains why those small, everyday paper cuts hurt some people so profoundly.
Right.
If a colleague talks over you in a meeting and you have a secure operating system, you might think, Bob is being incredibly rude today. He must be stressed out. The event just bounces off you.
It's Bob's problem, not mine.
Exactly. But if you have an anxious or avoidant operating system, that same event is filtered as a massive, undeniable validation of your deepest fears.
It confirms that you are unworthy.
That people don't respect you, that you are fundamentally unsafe. The small friction is magnified 1,000 times by the old code.
So we walk around all day interacting with these neutral events, but our invisible operating system is exhausting our battery by running threat detection programs in the background.
Constantly running.
No wonder we feel like sludge in the driveway. But here's the thing. We aren't consciously aware of the OS. So how do we actually see the code? How does this manifest in our conscious daily thoughts?
This brings us to a profoundly helpful framework from the texts regarding the architecture of the mind. Most of us operate under the illusion that our mind is one unified, cohesive block.
Like a single unified me.
Exactly. We think there is just a singular me making decisions. But psychological reality is much more fragmented. Our mind is a collection of distinct subpersonalities, all interacting, negotiating, and often fighting a bitter war with each other.
It's basically a noisy, chaotic boardroom inside our heads.
That is the perfect description. And we can categorize the members of this boardroom into 3 main roles.
Okay, let's break them down.
First, we have the managers. These are the proactive parts of us trying to maintain absolute control.
The control freaks.
Yes. Their entire job is to arrange our lives, our behaviors, and our environments so we never have to experience pain, humiliation, or rejection again.
The inner perfectionist is the ultimate manager, right?
The absolute ultimate.
It's the voice that says, if I just work 80 hours a week, anticipate every possible criticism, and never make a single mistake, no one can reject me, and I will finally be safe.
It wears a very tight suit and carries a clipboard everywhere, aggressively managing your image.
I know that guy with the clipboard intimately.
We all have a manager with a clipboard. But life is chaotic. You make a mistake, someone criticizes you, a relationship ends. The manager's rigid system inevitably fails, and psychological pain breaks through the perimeter.
And what happens then?
This is when the alarms go off and the second group steps in. The firefighters.
The firefighters, they sound intense.
They are entirely reactive, They don't care about the long-term strategy of the clipboard manager. They only care about putting out the emotional blaze right this second, by any means necessary.
So they aren't exactly focused on healthy coping mechanisms.
Not at all. They use impulsive, intense, and often destructive behaviors to numb or distract from the pain.
Give me an example of the firefighter in action.
Well, this is the part of you that takes over at 11 p.m. You have a massive presentation tomorrow that you feel wholly unprepared for.
Okay, setting the scene.
The manager is terrified of failing, the anxiety is spiking, and instead of sleeping or preparing, your firefighter takes the wheel, and suddenly you're on Wikipedia reading about the history of the Byzantine Empire for 3 hours while eating dry cereal out of the box.
Oh, wow. I feel very seen right now.
The firefighter is desperately trying to douse the flames of performance anxiety with the dopamine of distraction and sugar.
The sources actually connect this to the what the hell effect in dieting, which is the most concrete, relatable example of the war between managers and firefighters.
Oh, absolutely. Walk us through that.
Okay, imagine you decide to go on a strict diet. Your manager part steps in and sets impossible rules. No carbs, no sugar, exactly 1,200 calories a day, flawless execution.
The clipboard is out.
The clipboard is out. And for 3 days, the manager is in complete control. You are white-knuckling it. But on Thursday afternoon, someone brings a box of donuts into the break room.
A classic trap.
You are exhausted, your willpower is depleted, and you eat one donut. Just one.
The manager's rigid system has been breached.
Exactly. The manager panics and starts berating you. You failed. You are worthless. You have no discipline. You ruined everything.
This internal screaming creates a massive, intolerable spike of shame and emotional pain.
And the moment that excruciating shame hits, the firefighter kicks the door down. The firefighter sees the pain caused by the manager and says, "Quick, we need to numb this feeling immediately. What the hell? The diet is already ruined. Just eat the remaining 11 donuts."
It's so counterintuitive, but so real. The rigid thinking backfires completely.
Right.
The firefighter uses the very behavior the manager was trying to avoid overeating to soothe the pain caused by the manager's impossible standards.
It is a vicious, self-sustaining cycle.
And while the managers and firefighters are battling it out, destroying your energy in the process, there's a third group sitting quietly, locked away in the basement.
The exiles.
Yes.
The exiles.
They hold the original wounds, don't they?
They are the vulnerable, often childlike parts of us that carry the memories of past pain, humiliation, or early attachment failures. They hold the small traumas.
And the other parts want to keep them hidden.
Exactly. The managers and firefighters expend all their energy trying to keep the exiles locked away. Because if an exile breaches the surface, we are flooded with that old, heavy sludge of unworthiness or terror.
The texts talk about the scripts that keep those exiles locked in the basement. They call them core beliefs.
Yes, core beliefs.
These are the deeply ingrained, unconscious sentences we believe about ourselves and the world. Things like, "I must be perfect to be loved," or "People will inevitably betray me. I am fundamentally flawed."
And these aren't just passing thoughts. They are the literal lenses through which you view every single interaction. So when the paperclip bends today, it's not just about the current annoyance. It's a manager failing, a firefighter reacting, and an exile threatening to release a core belief of total worthlessness.
You're dealing with the whole boardroom at once.
Okay, I have to challenge this model for a second because reading through it, it feels incredibly deterministic.
How so?
Well, if my mind is just a chaotic boardroom of tyrannical managers, impulsive firefighters, and wounded exiles, all operating on outdated code written by my early childhood attachment who is actually driving the car.
Right.
Where is my free will in all of this? If I am just a collection of reacting parts, how do I ever find a center?
That is the pivotal realization. If you remain identified with the parts, you are just caught in the thunderstorm.
Okay.
But beneath all those parts, beneath the clipboard manager and the frantic firefighter, there is a steady, unharmed center. The text referred to it as the core self, or the inner observer.
The inner observer.
To use a different analogy, if the parts are the clouds passing through the sky, the core self is the sky itself.
Oh, I like that.
It is unchanging, it's observant, calm, and curious.
But how do we access the sky when the thunderstorm is deafening? I mean, when I get a terrifying email, I don't feel like a calm, observant sky. I feel like pure panic.
Right, the storm is loud, we have to pierce through the noise. There is a specific cognitive technique detailed in the materials designed to help access the observer state and drill down past the managers and firefighters.
Let's hear it.
It's called the downward arrow. The premise is simple. When you feel an intense, disproportionate emotional reaction to a daily event, You stop. You step into the observer role, and you repeatedly ask yourself one simple question. And what does that mean for me?
Okay, let's run a real-time simulation of this. I think that will help the listener really grasp it.
Great idea.
I'll be the person caught in the storm. Let's use the email example.
Yep.
I get an email from my boss at 4:30 p.m. on a Friday. It just says, "We need to talk on Monday." My stomach drops. My chest tightens. I am convinced my weekend is entirely ruined.
Okay, so step into the observer. You feel the physical panic. What is the surface thought driving it?
The surface thought is, my boss wants a meeting, which means she hates the project proposal I submitted on Wednesday.
Okay, we apply the downward arrow. Let's assume that surface thought is entirely true. She hated the proposal. What does that mean for you?
Well, if she hated it, it means she thinks I am incompetent. It means I am bad at my job.
We go a layer deeper. Assume she thinks you are incompetent. What does that mean for you?
It means she is going to fire me. I am going to lose my livelihood.
Still going down. Let's say you lose your job on Monday. What does that mean for you?
If I lose this job, I won't be able to find another one in this industry. People will look at my resume and realize I am actually an imposter who has been faking it this whole time.
And if everyone realizes you are an imposter, what does that mean?
It means I will lose the respect of my peers, my family. I will be completely ruined. It means I am fundamentally a failure, and no one will ever want to be associated with me. I will end up entirely alone and discarded.
And there we hit the bedrock. Right. The downward arrow reveals the true architecture of the panic. We started with a vague 5-word email about a Monday meeting.
A totally neutral email.
Exactly. But the actual core belief generating the physiological terror wasn't about the meeting at all. It was an exile part, terrified of the underlying belief. I am fundamentally a failure and I will be abandoned.
When you lay it out like that, it's startling. The email was just a trigger. The explosive was already planted there, wired by old core beliefs and early attachment fears of abandonment.
Yes. And once you engage the observer to see that core belief clearly, the spell breaks.
Because you can name it.
Exactly. You can look at the fear of total abandonment and say, that is just an old script. That is a wounded part of me speaking. That is not the reality of a 4:30 p.m. email.
That makes so much sense. So we have diagnosed the invisible weight. We understand it as the accumulation of everyday taper cuts, compounding over time.
Right.
We've traced its origins to our evolutionary need for connection, our attachment operating systems, and the noisy boardroom of our internal family parts. We see the machinery now.
We've laid it all out.
Now, we have to talk about the tools. How do we build an emotional immune system so we don't end up paralyzed in our parked cars?
The transition from understanding the machinery to actually changing how it operates requires a 3-step framework. It is essentially a manual for rewriting your psychological operating system.
And those steps are?
Awareness, acceptance, and action.
AAA. Awareness, acceptance, action. Let's start with awareness. We just touched on the cognitive side with the downward arrow, but there is a massive physiological component to this, isn't there?
Huge. Awareness must be grounded in the body. Our modern society prioritizes the intellect, but our stress response is a very primitive, blunt, biological instrument.
It's animalistic.
Totally. When your attachment system registers social rejection, a weird look from a boss, an unreturned text, it doesn't send a polite memo to your prefrontal cortex. It hits the exact same alarm button that early humans used to survive physical predators.
So your body floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate skyrockets to pump blood to your major muscle groups so you can sprint.
Your breathing becomes shallow and rapid to take in more oxygen.
Your digestive system shuts down because digesting lunch is a waste of energy if you are about to be eaten. That is a brilliant physiological response to a literal physical threat.
But you are sitting in a climate-controlled conference room looking at a spreadsheet.
Right. There is no physical threat.
Yet your body is preparing for a fight to the death. It is an evolutionary mismatch. And because we are constantly exposed to minor social frictions, we spend our entire days marinating in these stress hormones.
Marinating in stress. So the practice of awareness is the ability to sit in that meeting, feel your heart racing, and engage the inner observer to intervene.
Yes, you mentally step back.
You step back and say, I notice my heart is racing. I notice my stomach is tied in knots. My vagus nerve is detecting a threat. And my body believes I am in physical danger, but I am not. This is an uncomfortable physiological sensation, an echo of an old attachment fear, not a literal death sentence.
By simply naming the physical sensation without judgment, you interrupt the automatic firefighter response.
Yeah.
You introduce a tiny sliver of space, a gap between the stimulus and your reaction.
And in that gap lies your freedom.
Beautifully said.
Okay, so I've created the gap. I am aware that my OS is misfiring. What next? The second step is acceptance. And frankly, reading the sources, this seems like the most counterintuitive part of the whole process.
It is definitely the hardest step because our deepest instinct is to fight pain. When an exile part floors up with shame or when we feel a wave of anxiety, our managers immediately try to crush it.
We try to fix it, distract from it, argue with it. We yell at ourselves internally, stop feeling anxious. You shouldn't be upset about this. Just get over it.
We literally treat our own emotions like enemy combatants.
We do.
And that internal warfare consumes massive amounts of your daily energy.
You.
That is exactly where the exhaustion in the car comes from. You have spent 8 hours fighting yourself. Imagine you are engaged in a fierce, desperate game of tug-of-war.
Okay, I have a thick, rough rope in my hands. I'm pulling with all my might. My heels are dug into the dirt.
And on the other end of the rope is a massive, terrifying monster.
Sounds fun.
Right? This monster represents your anxiety, your past small traumas, your feelings of unworthiness. You are pulling and pulling, sweating, agonizing, trying to drag the monster over the line to defeat it.
Because I'm terrified that if I lose, the monster will pull me into a bottomless pit.
Exactly. So you spend your entire life pulling on this rope.
It sounds utterly exhausting.
It's the definition of the sludge. Now, here's the radical nature of acceptance. Acceptance is realizing that you do not have to win the tug of war.
Right, really?
Yes. Acceptance is simply looking at your blistered hands, opening your fingers and dropping the rope.
Just dropping it.
When you drop the rope, a profound shift occurs. The monster doesn't magically disappear. It is still standing right there in the landscape.
Your anxiety still exists. Your history still happened.
But the war is over.
Mm-hmm.
You are no longer expending all your life force fighting your own internal reality. You accept that the monster is present, but you are now free to turn around and do something else with your hands.
So acceptance isn't saying, I love this monster, or I'm glad this trauma happened.
No, not at all.
It's just acknowledging, this is here right now, and I am not going to fight its existence. It's an act of surrender that paradoxically gives you back all your power.
Exactly. And there is a classic technique from Gestalt psychology discussed in the texts to practice this kind of radical acceptance and release the trapped emotional energy.
Oh, the empty chair technique.
Yes, this is a very active physical form of acceptance. Often we are pulling on a rope with someone from our past, a caregiver who was dismissive, a friend who betrayed us, a teacher who humiliated us.
We carry the unexpressed anger and hurt trapped in our bodies, vibrating in our nervous system.
So in the empty chair technique, you literally set up an empty chair in your room, and you vividly imagine that person, the one who caused the small, compounding trauma sitting right there across from you.
And you speak to them out loud.
You vocalize everything your childhood self or your past self was never allowed to say.
You say, when you sighed at my artwork, it made me feel worthless. Or, when you gave me the silent treatment, I felt like I was invisible and terrified.
Yes. You speak your unvarnished, messy, angry truth to the empty chair.
And you aren't doing it to get an apology from a ghost, are you?
No, you are doing it to externalize the trapped emotion. You are bringing it out of your internal exile dungeon and speaking it into the air, which allows your nervous system to finally process it and accept that it happened.
It physically moves the emotional energy out of your body.
It does. And once you have cultivated awareness of your sensations, and you have practiced acceptance by dropping the rope and speaking your truth, you are finally ready for the third and final step, action.
Because we can't just sit around talking to empty chairs forever. We have to actually engage with the world.
We do. But people constantly get the sequence backward. They try to jump straight to action without awareness or acceptance.
Oh, totally. They try to life hack their way out of trauma with productivity apps and forced positive thinking.
That is like trying to build a skyscraper in a swamp. It sinks. But once the foundation is clear, action is about actively choosing new behaviors that defy your old core beliefs.
This connects directly back to the attachment styles, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
If your original caregivers didn't provide a secure base, if they were anxious, avoidant, or disorganized, you don't have to remain permanently broken by that deficit.
As an adult, you can step in and become the secure parent to your own wounded parts. This is called reparenting.
Your adult core self steps up to provide the validation and safety that the child exile part never received.
And there is a beautiful, concrete example of this in the reading. Imagine a person who, as a child, was heavily criticized for being messy or creative.
Their parents demanded neatness, quietness, and practicality.
The child's natural artistic impulse was shamed and locked away. The core belief became, my creativity is bad, frivolous, and makes me unlovable.
How does the adult reparent that specific wound?
Through a literal physical action. The adult goes to an art supply store. They buy the messy finger paints, the bright, obnoxious colors, the massive canvases that the child was denied.
They bring them home, set them up on the kitchen floor, and explicitly, consciously say to their inner child, "Here, I bought these for you. You are allowed to be messy. I want to see what you create."
It is a profound act of rewriting the script through physical action.
That is the essence of behavioral activation. There is a fundamental principle here. You cannot think your way into a new way of acting.
Your old core beliefs are far too deeply entrenched in your neural pathways. Instead, you must act your way into a new way of thinking.
Act your way into a new way of thinking. If your core belief is, "I am unworthy of love," you can't just repeat affirmations in a mirror and expect your nervous system to magically believe them.
No, you have to take the action of setting a healthy boundary. You take the action of walking away from a toxic dynamic.
Because the action provides the brain with new, undeniable data. The brain observes your behavior and says, wait, if we were truly worthless, we wouldn't have stood up for ourselves just now. Maybe the old code is wrong.
You force the operating system to update by feeding it new behavioral data.
Yeah.
And if we pull all the way back to look at the broader landscape, this three-step method, awareness, acceptance, action isn't just a survival tactic for getting through a Tuesday.
It's bigger than that.
It is the very mechanism by which we build a psychological immune system.
Think about how a biological vaccine works. A vaccine introduces a small, manageable dose of a virus into your body.
It causes a bit of friction. Your body might run a slight fever.
But your immune system encounters the pathogen, processes it, and learns from it. It creates antibodies, so that when you encounter the real massive virus later, your body is robust, intelligent, and prepared to fight it off.
By using awareness, acceptance, and action to process the small, everyday frictions, the microaggressions, the minor rejections, the daily disappointments, we are effectively vaccinating ourselves.
We stop letting the paper cuts accumulate as credit card debt. Instead, we use these small doses of daily adversity to practice resilience. We create emotional antibodies.
These small frictions, rather than weighing us down and turning into sludge, become the very weights we lift in the gym to build a robust psychological immune system.
They prepare us for life's inevitable larger storms, because major, devastating events will still happen.
They absolutely will. But if we have been building our immune system every day by processing the small things, we will have the strength, the secure internal base, and the self-awareness required to navigate the big things without shattering.
We turn daily friction from a poison into a vaccine.
Exactly.
I want to take you, the listener, right back to the front seat of that parked car in your driveway. The engine is completely quiet now. The evening has fully settled in. The steering wheel is still under your hands.
Look at that heavy, dull exhaustion now. Look at that sludge through the lens of everything we have unpacked today.
It looks entirely different. You realize that this feeling in your bones is not a personal failure. It is not a sign that you are weak or broken.
Not at all.
It is simply your internal alarm system going off.
Huh.
It is an echo of an old attachment script, a flare sent up by an exile part, asking for your attention and your compassion.
It is your body telling you that the paperclip has been bent a little too far today, and it needs you to drop the rope.
It is an invitation to step out of the thunderstorm and into the sky.
It really is.
I want to leave you with a broader reflection on human potential to mull over tonight. If your past experiences the ways your caregivers responded, the small wounds you accumulated wrote your initial default operating system.
And if your daily conscious actions, your awareness, your acceptance, your active reparenting have the power to rewrite that code,
Then you must realize something profound. You are not a static monument to your history. You are not a machine locked forever into its original programming.
you are a living, breathing, brilliantly adaptable, self-repairing ecosystem.
You possess the neuroplasticity to continually renew yourself. So as you finally unbuckle that seatbelt, open the car door, and walk into your evening, ask yourself, what entirely new version of yourself is waiting to be authored tomorrow simply by choosing to observe rather than absorb the invisible weight of the day?